So this is Drona, back with another commentary of a mid-level or low-level, rather, ranked 3v3 game with my team, the Twisted Threes. I will be playing Kayle this game with my jungler on Sion and my top laner on Renek. Our opponents are on Jayce, Morgana, and Jax. They don't have a jungler, and so I strongly suspect, when we came into this game, we suspected that Jayce would be top, that Jax would be top with Jayce and Morgana bottom. So I picked Kayle to try and have some very safe farm, so if I got pushed into tower, I can still get a lot of last hits and have a lot of lane sustain. So I want to talk a little bit about what our overall strategy is going to be during the course of this game. So they have a lot of ranged poke in Jayce, but their comp isn't built purely to poke and isn't built very well to poke, because Jax really has to dive in. So our thought was, when Jax dives in, we can eliminate Jax and then focus down everyone else, getting to Jayce if at all possible, but not making that really a priority. So what you'll see here really quickly is just an insane trade that occurs right at level 1 between our top laner and their Jax. And our top laner, being very experienced at Renek, knows exactly what he's doing. And again, as I said, this is a low tier ranked game, so you can see that the Jax just has no clue exactly how much damage Renek will do to him. So if we float down to me for a moment, we'll see that I'm a little bit low. This is because just in a fit of insanity, decided to not level anything at level 1, didn't realize I hadn't, and tried to eat a minion wave, and so walked right into everything, and took a pretty nice combo. Didn't force out any of my summoners, but I did have to. Did have to burn a pot and wasn't doing great in lane. As you can see, I have 2 CS to the 9 between my 2 lane opponents. But luckily, as we saw with that trade between Jax and Renek, top lane is doing quite well. I sort of anticipated being pushed back into my lane. That's why I picked the Kayle, just so I could continue to farm well. Interestingly, when they've pushed me into tower, they don't really capitalize on that and push into the jungle, harass my jungler. Here Morg tried to go in and harass our altar, but then got collapsed on by all of us because Jax is nowhere near, and Jayce took the long way around. So that was a mistake in positioning on her part, which allowed us to get the very easy first blood. Now we're going to try for their altar with Sion while I continue to farm. I wanted to get our altar, but I wanted to also make sure that I kept up on farm. So now that they're collapsing on Sion, and I think he made a call for help, I'll come in and we'll clean up here. Unfortunately, I didn't have my W up, so I couldn't get a heal off at that point. And so I try and flank Jayce, but Renek isn't nearby for support, and Jayce's burst damage is too much for me to try and take on 1v1, especially with Morg at my back, so I just back out. So lucky for us, their Jayce built a tier. Now, I mentioned before in my previous video that I'm a little suspect of tiers in general in Twisted Treeline, just because of the length of the game. Unless you have somebody who's really spamming spells, which I suppose Jayce can with his mechanism switch. But the point is that before he has his mana immune, it's not providing him a lot of damage. So that's why we're able to soak through most of the stuff that he's sending our way at the moment. So now Renek tries to flank on the bottom lane. They wisely call it out, and I continue to farm. And what we're going to see is that then Renek and Sion head into their jungle and try and, again, establish forward position so that I can safely farm and we can starve them of experience. Since they have no jungler, Sion doesn't have to feel very afraid while in their jungle. So Jax is by himself here, and we know we can split him off from the rest of the team, so we try and go in on him, but he wisely backs out. And at this point, we're sort of stuck between different members of their team and didn't really make a good decision on who to go on because there wasn't really a great angle. So unfortunately that allowed us to get distracted for long enough for Jayce to take their altar, and so we're going to continue and settle back into our typical rotations. So as before, my primary items on Kayle are going to be the Nashor's Tooth and the Wooglets. Because I wanted to have my heal up a little bit more often, I decided to go with the Fiendish Codex first instead of the Stinger. To be honest, I'm not 100% positive that's the best idea, but really you don't need a lot of attack speed on your... at least I didn't feel like I needed a lot of attack speed on my E at the moment because I was able to farm well without it, and it would take more... it would take a significant catch for us to be able to really burn them down. I don't know. It's entirely possible that Stinger is the right way to go, but I just felt the Fiendish Codex this game. Renek went the early Chain Vest because of Jax and the damage that he can bring out, but as we can see from that early trade, that probably wasn't necessary. I mean, you can see Renekton's essentially just living by Jax's tower, able to just do a lot of really good harass while our Sion sits in their jungle. This lets me free farm, lets me push into their tower, get some harass onto their tower. Now, I saw that an engage was occurring with Sion, so I wanted to go up and support him. And this also gave us freedom to now take their altar, because I had pushed my lane, bot lane, all the way in. Jayce tries some harass to get us off the altar, doesn't succeed. Now, with no one on the map, I backed out because I was afraid of a flank. I think that was probably the safest move, since getting bound by Morg is likely a death sentence with so few items on me. The good news is that after that first, the first issue with last hitting, I'm caught up on my CS and surpassed my lane opponents, and you can see that Jayce is pretty far behind me. Morg is pretty far behind Sion. Let me actually just match up the different heroes with their sort of pseudo lane partners here. Okay, so let's speed through some of this farm and get to something a little bit more interesting as we continue to try and push lanes and press our advantage. So here, Morgana is wildly out of position, and what she should have done is immediately Black Shield when she saw Sion coming in, which would have allowed her to survive that, likely get off her flash a little bit earlier, and maybe even make it out of the engage. But once he had stunned her, my slow landed. That was a sure kill. The really nice thing about Kayle's E is that there's no splash damage, at least as far as I can tell, on champions from hits on tower. So it allows me to hit tower from range without drawing tower aggro, which is really nice. So let's continue sort of speeding through this game here. Okay, so now Sion is harassing them off of the altar that they're trying to take back. We come in. I try and get onto their Jax, even throwing out my exhaust, but it doesn't work. I see if I can pincer the Morg, but my creep wave is too far back to soak up tower aggro, which is too bad. So we have to let that go. We are unable to secure any kills at that point. So now we have all three down bottom. We're just thinking that we can push down this tower, and so now Jayce is coming in from the top. He's gonna be pretty ineffectual. If I were him, I don't know. I might have gated a little bit earlier, thrown down some long range poke. But I mean, he hasn't finished his man immune yet, so he's really unable to do any serious damage with his poke. Okay, so let's go back to farming away. The nice thing about having a hyper carry like Kayle on your team is that you can be secure that you're not slowly losing the game as you continue to farm, because you know with carries like Renekton, Sion, these bruisers, you know, the mid game is really their strength point. So if we're not able to you know, capitalize on that, we always have the Kayle peak at the late game. Okay, so now back to farming. Looks like Sion is trading off with the Jayce up top. And so we notice that, so we go to help. So both me and Renekton flash. So first I flash, then Jayce flashes, but my Q hits anyway, then Renekton flashes in for the kill. Okay, so we ended up tanking a lot of tower for this, and since my ult was already down, that meant that Renekton was going down, which is too bad. And then we make a slight mistake here where we overstay. So finally Jayce has his man immune, so his poke is going to be doing some damage, and he proves it as he comes out into lane, and with a single blast manages to take out Sion. And then this was a big mistake by me where I stayed. So I don't know when I used my W, but it was clearly at the wrong time because I didn't have it here. So, and my Q didn't work. It was I just really misplayed that that little engage right there. Okay, now Sion is coming in for the ult, and as you saw, Morg black shielded the ult, so they were unable to lock her down, and so she got away. So now, for reasons that I can't fathom, they tried to take our altar. Unfortunately, our Renekton got pincered between their Jayce and Morg, took a lot of harass, and so was chased out of the fight. I was chasing Jayce that whole time, and as you can see from the icon, he's very low, but was called back to my team because I didn't want to be that far out of position, and we managed to clean up the Jax without losing Renekton. Now, not saying that any of this is an achievement, because you know, our opponents are clearly not experts, but neither are we, so you know, everyone's learning. So we're continuing to maintain our farm. Renekton is doing an excellent job of farming out the lanes. You can see he has nearly twice the farm of everyone else. That was a really weird Jayce shot. I don't know how Jayce missed that badly, but... Okay, so we were able to put some damage down on Jayce. Jax is there. He's going to stun Sion. Sion will continue to run. I heal Sion and call for us to retreat. So just everyone backs out. We all stay safe. Okay. And here I'm looking for a pick, making sure that they don't flank around on our Renekton up top. So here we go. So I wanted to get a pick off on Jayce, but unfortunately, you know, to be honest, I'm not 100% clear. Let's take another look at exactly what happened right there. So, okay. So I'm trying to make sure that Renekton doesn't get flanked. Then I set up a little farther forward to see if I can get a flank on somebody. So Sion right here is really far away. So my hope was that, you know, since I knew that we had a pretty significant farm advantage, that I'd be able to burn people down, and that, you know, we had a 2v2 since Morg wasn't on the screen and Sion had his ult up. But the call got a little mixed. Renekton backed off as I engaged. I had to pop my ult a little bit earlier than I'd like, and people flashed away from Sion's ult, so we weren't really able to close up on anything during the course of that engage. But we will be able to get this tower. because they haven't been doing a very concerted job of holding towers. So here, I safely walk out of the ult. Sion flashes out of the ult, and so now we're forced to run. Here I make a little stutter step in the hope of trying to Q Spider, and force it to aggro onto them. But that was a mistake considering my Q range. I should have done that earlier. But this is a big mistake by them. They dive way too deep. The tower aggroes, my Q hits, and he's slowed. And then for reasons I can't fathom, Jayce comes back in. I immediately exhaust him, so he does absolutely no damage to me, and we get a nice cleanup. So that was just free money for us, and now we're up a significant amount. So I've finished my Nashor's Tooth, and you can see that Renek has already finished his Ravenous Hydra, and so whereas Sion has finished his Tiamat and is working on his Hex Drinker, largely for the magic damage. I think it's from Morg, but I to be honest, I'm not 100% sure whether Jayce also does magic damage off of his poke, so that it might also be for that. I'm a little unclear on that. Jax is building God knows what. This Jax was wildly ineffectual, and so we're going to take this tower after poking them out. Morg is building a Rod of Ages, which makes sense, but given her low farm levels, it's just going to be way too late to really make any difference. Jayce is actually the most dangerous member with his mana immune now, and it looks like he's building towards a Trinity Force, so I think he's going to be able to do a significant amount of damage, but no member of their team is probably an absolute threat if we can begin and engage on our own terms. So this is just masterful on my part. So I am wildly out of position and don't have my ult up. So my ult is very, very nearly back up by this point. The icon in the top right is actually wrong. It's about 10 seconds away from being back up, and you'll see sort of as it floats closer that I think that I can engage and then cast my ult when Jayce combos on me. But as he knocks me away, you can see my ult still isn't quite up. So I die just as my ult comes off of cooldown, which leaves my two teammates just totally screwed, and they then die to the subsequent team, but we do manage to get a kill off. Unfortunately, Sion isn't able to track down the Jax. A little bit closer to my Wooglets, but again, we're so far up in gold that there's really no significant threat from anything that they're doing at this point. Our goal is just to maintain the lead, make sure we don't really throw it away. So yeah, so Sion was just ulting, I believe, to threaten Morgana. I can't exactly remember the nature of what happened right then, but as you saw, ran into the tower, and that was the end of the ult. But since it's off cooldown so quickly, there's really no threat. It's, I believe, with max CDR and max level, it's on a essentially 30-second cooldown. Here we just clean up Spider, which hits me for some goddamn reason, which is super frustrating. I've played an enormous amount of Twisted Tree Line and still don't completely understand the mechanics of Spider. So here I request to get some more jungle farm so I can get my Wooglets. Go back, pick up my Wooglets, and then now we're ready to romp. as you can see, even with the kill score not being that far apart, they just have been very, very ineffectual in killing creeps. But I think the point still remains that we have a lot of map control, and that we should let their lanes push back into ours a little bit, just to starve them of farm, and more importantly experience. So as we continue to level up, they're unable to see the experience. So Sion here. Let me back up just a little bit and look at Sion's perspective. So Sion is in lane. And they see him alone. I think they might have spotted me up top. So then they decide to go in. But, I mean, so Morg's harass does nothing because of the Hex Drinker. And then Jayce does nothing because, like, look at his items. I don't even know. And Renek then flashes in behind the Jayce, stuns him, which immediately combos into the Sion stun, into the Sion pop-up. And then we managed to kill both Jayce and Morgana pretty trivially, and then we will be able to clean up the Jax right here, which then leads them to surrender the game. Okay, and that's I think the moral of the story there is, you know, I understand we didn't ban Jax, but if you're gonna pick him, at least know how to play him.